Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Imagine a world where Back to the Future, that iconic, beloved time travel adventure we all know, wasn't the same. What if Marty McFly never drove the DeLorean? Or if Doc Brown wasn't played by the eccentric, lovable Christopher Lloyd? As it turns out, Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, the masterminds behind the film, went through countless rewrites and revisions to craft the Back to the Future we have today.
Because making the first movie was such a grueling experience that all we wanted to do was get the movie finished and get it into theaters.
Along the way, they explored ideas that would have made the movie wildly different and perhaps less iconic. With the involvement of Universal Pictures and executive producer Steven Spielberg, Zemeckis and Gale had to adjust their vision again and again, leading to some surprisingly early drafts and storylines that didn't make the cuts. Let's see how these changes shape Back to the Future and discover the original plans that almost took Marty and Doc down a very different road.
Marty McFly isn't planning to travel through time. He is an accidental time traveler.
Believe it or not, Back to the Future nearly starred a different Marty McFly. Though Michael J. Fox was the first choice, the producers initially couldn't cast him due to his commitment to the sitcom Family Ties. Eric Stoltz was cast instead, and parts of the film were even shot with him as Marty. But it soon became clear Stoltz wasn't the right fit for the light-hearted yet adventurous character of Marty. His portrayal was much darker and serious, which clashed with the film's overall tone. Fortunately, the producers circled back to Fox, striking a deal with Family Ties to allow him to work on both projects. Today, it's hard to imagine anyone but Fox embodying Marty's mix of charm, wit, and relatable awkwardness. But if circumstances had been slightly different, Stoltz might have become the face of Marty McFly, and Back to the Future could have had a very different vibe.
Back to the Future. Yes, Eric Stoltz is your boy in that movie. What an embodied performance. You mean Michael J. Fox?
Alongside the casting of Marty, another critical character faced an uncertain casting journey, Dr. Emmett "Doc" Brown. Before Christopher Lloyd landed the role, the eccentric time traveler scientist almost went to John Lithgow or Mark Mothersbaugh, the lead singer of Devo. Lithgow's take on Doc would have certainly been intriguing, but in the end, it was Lloyd's zany, high-energy performance that brought the character to life. Surprisingly, Lloyd initially turned down the role, only changing his mind after a persuasive conversation with Zemeckis.
I went through it. I just wasn't into it. I put it in the waste paper basket.
Can you imagine Back to the Future without Lloyd's electric portrayal of Doc? That's a different movie, and one where Great Scott might not be as unforgettable a line as it is today.
Great Scott!
Of course, we can't talk about Back to the Future without mentioning the DeLorean, which has become practically synonymous with time travel, thanks to the movie. However, Doc's time machine was not always supposed to be a car. In early drafts, Zemeckis and Gale envisioned a time-traveling refrigerator. While the concept of a refrigerator as a time machine had a unique charm, there were concerns. They feared kids might try to climb into their fridges at home, risking safety hazards. The DeLorean ultimately provided a sleek, mobile time machine that allowed for thrilling chases and escapes. Plus, the car's gold-wing doors added an extra layer of futuristic coolness, solidifying it as one of cinema's most iconic vehicles. In the original story, Marty's journey back to 1985 didn't rely on the clock tower. Instead, it was meant to be powered by a nuclear bomb. Yes, you heard that right. Marty and Doc were supposed to drive the DeLorean through a nuclear test site as a bomb detonated, supplying the power for the time jump. This sequence was ultimately scrapped due to the high costs and logistical challenges of filming. And honestly, it's probably for the best. The nuclear bomb scene might have felt too intense, taking the film down a more serious, Cold War-inspired path that would clash with its fun and adventurous tone. The clock tower, on the other hand, brought a mix of suspense, charm, and simplicity that became a defining moment of the movie. Another wild idea the writers considered was powering the time machine with Coca-Cola. At one point, the DeLorean's fuel wasn't plutonium or Mr. Fusion, it was Coke. This quirky concept was likely intended as a comedic element, but was thankfully dropped. Not only would it have seemed a bit out of place, but it also didn't make much sense. While Coca-Cola as fuel would have added an amusing twist, the decision to give the time machine more scientific credibility gave the movie a stronger foundation.
Of course, from a group of Libyan nationalists. They wanted me to build them a bomb, so I took their plutonium and in turn gave them a shiny bomb casing full of used pinball machine parts. Come on!
After all, Back to the Future is a blend of fantasy and science fiction, and a Coca-Cola powered time machine would have veered too far into the absurd. Doc's loyal pet Einstein almost had a very different form, a chimpanzee named Shemp. Universal executive Sid Sheinberg reportedly opposed the idea, arguing that movies with chimps tended to flop at the box office. Ultimately, Zemeckis and Gale went with a dog instead. This change was definitely for the better, as Einstein's role in the movie is understated, yet impactful. Plus, the sight of a dog being the first test passenger of the time machine adds a level of warmth to Doc's character and the movie overall. Imagine Doc with a hyperactive chimp sidekick, and you can see how this small detail would have significantly altered the film's feel. Back to the Future soundtrack, with its grand, adventurous score, is essential to its identity, but this too was nearly different. Spielberg initially doubted that composer Alan Silvestri, who had scored Romancing the Stone, would deliver the epic sound he envisioned. However, Zemeckis believed in Silvestri's potential, and when Spielberg heard a sample of the score without knowing the composer, he loved it. Silvestri's score ended up perfectly capturing the excitement and wonder of time travel, and it's hard to imagine the movie without it. One of Marty's most memorable scenes is his rock and roll performance at the school dance, where he wows the audience with Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Good. In an early draft, though, Marty's actions accidentally erased rock and roll from history. He was originally supposed to discourage the band from playing Blue Suede Shoes, which would have caused a ripple effect where rock music never took off. Fortunately, the filmmakers chose to keep the paradoxical inspiration, where Berry's hit is seemingly inspired by Marty, preserving the lighthearted spirit of the movie. The storyline of Marty using a sports almanac to get rich, which was a major plot in Back to the Future 2, almost appeared in the first film. Early drafts had Marty wanting to use future knowledge for financial gain, but the filmmakers felt this motivation would make him less likable. Doc's line, "I didn't invent the time machine to win at gambling," in Part 2, speaks to this, reminding us that Marty's adventures should be about growth and experience, not personal profit. Sid Sheinberg, who had been right about replacing the chimp, pitched a different title for Back to the Future, Spaceman from Pluto. While Zemeckis and Gale were horrified, Spielberg cleverly sent a memo thanking Sheinberg for the joke, saving the film from a terrible title. Imagine a world where this iconic movie is known as Spaceman from Pluto. The title, Back to the Future, perfectly captures the essence of the film, setting the stage for a thrilling time travel adventure that wouldn't have the same charm under any other name. The ending of Back to the Future sets up sequels and makes us wonder what lies ahead for Marty, Doc, and even Jennifer. But this ending wasn't always the plan. Originally, the film concluded with a scene where George McFly finds a newspaper from 1955 with a photo of his son, leaving him confused. This ending was scrapped in favor of a more open-ended, adventure-promising finale, which feels more fitting for a story about exploring the possibilities of time. That was just a glimpse into how Back to the Future could have been a completely different film. Each change along the way, whether it was casting, the time machine's form, or even the film's title, played a role in creating the movie we know and love. Through a mixture of luck, skill, and great timing, no pun intended, Zemeckis and Gale managed to shape a classic that would stand the test of time. That pun was definitely intended. It's fun to imagine what might have been, but in the end, all the tweaks and adjustments only made the film better. Thanks for watching, everybody, and make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Director's Cut for more awesome content like this.